Good morning, Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. You're listening to Hard Talk Grenada. A very special good morning to those of you joining us on the various radio stations, 97.5 CitysoundFM, 89.5 CRFM, 91.9 and 91.5 RealFM Radio, 92.9 Sister Al Radio out there in Hillsborough, Carriacou, and 94.9 We Noise Radio out there in Brooklyn, New York. A very special good morning to those of you who are joining us on the live video stream, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, or on Instagram. It's a pleasure being here with you this morning. And of course, with me in studio, I have none other than my co-host, Mr. Roland Bola. I think it's the first time we see him for the week, you know. Good morning, Mr. Bola.
Good morning to you, Ms. Duncan, and good morning to all of the listeners. It is a fact that it wouldn't be the first time for the week the listeners are hearing me on the program, but it is not the first time for the week that you are seeing me, Ms. Duncan. So don't give the impression that I have been staying away from the job. Callers, sorry, listeners, my bad this morning. It's kind of a little chillier than usual this morning. I think it has to do with the weather. We've been getting, some rain in the last couple of days. In fact, up in my neck of the woods, we've been getting rain every morning. Anytime between 3 and 5 in the morning, we seem to be getting a shower. We thank God, though. The water is always good. The plants are happy for it because we should be in the dry spell, or the dry season.
Dry season.
Yeah, but it is apparent, and I think there was some announcement to that earlier on, that we would have a kind of a blended dry season this year, where there would be some showers in and between. Not to show the exact reason for that. Sometimes, there are periods where they call El Nino, and, that's going back into the jog and weather and thing. And since I have not reviewed those things in a while, I don't want to get into it to use the wrong terminology. But be that as it may, it's a wonderful Friday. For earlier part of this week, I have been engaged in doing some other stuff. So I was off air on Monday. On Tuesday, there was this joint sitting between the lower and the upper house, the parliamentarians, the parliamentary representative from the representatives from the lower house, as well as the senators from the upper house, to move that motion for recognition and doing what is referred to as tributes to the late Elvin G. Nimrod, who has served for 4 consecutive terms in Parliament. 19 years, I think, as a representative for the constituency of Petit Martinique and Carriacou and Petit Martinique, as we'd oftentimes say. So that would have caused me to be off. And then on Wednesday, I was engaged again in doing some national duties. Yesterday, I was here for the entire time. However, Ms. Duncan did not request my presence on air. She had 2 handsome young men, much younger looking, stronger looking, better looking than I am. So she decided that it was best to keep their company. Good morning, officers. They were from the fire department, and from what I've heard yesterday, it was a very, enriching program. So today she has no one else to admire, so she has to look at my ugly face. So.
I am only laughing because I am not going to dignify that statement with a response.
No, you don't have to dignify it. You just have to accept it. That's all you need to do, Mr. Duncan.
But it is a beautiful Friday nonetheless. We are happy for the rain, Mr. Bola. And as we know, according to climate change, well, we know that climate change is happening, and all around the world we're seeing effects of that. I think it was Texas this week that experienced
the coldest they've ever had, the most snow.
I think in 30 years or something like that. They've had water outages, electricity outages.
Yeah, most of the utilities.
It's been rough for them, but that's what climate change is going to do. We've just started to see the effects of it overseas. We don't know what the effects of it is going to be, for us here now.
Well, we definitely would have our beat that we'd have to undergo. And I think we've been feeling it already. Maybe it's not as pronounced as what we're seeing in Texas in terms of the snow and so. But the farmers will tell you that the seasons have changed, dramatically. In terms of our wet season, dry season type, because that's what we know. In terms of planting, those who are engaged in planting, especially traditional crops like our corn and peas, sweet potatoes, cassava, those things. There were specific times of the year, it's 20, 30 years ago, specific time in the year when there would be land preparation, and then you move straight on into planting. That has changed drastically now, the seasons. So while, yes, there's still a wet and a dry season, or summer and rain, as we call it, the times when you expect them are differing as we go along. So climate change is really bringing around a lot of changes, and so we have to be able to mitigate against it, one, by doing the things that will ease the destruction of the ozone layer, and sea level rise and so, but also we have to adapt new standards and new methods of dealing with the new systems as they are now, as so.
Yeah, Mr. Bola, this morning, I think I want to touch a bit on the industrial action, the industrial relations between government and teachers and public workers. I want to say public workers on a whole, because it's not just the teachers. It's all of the unions, really. Mostly in the four, you see the Public Workers Union and also the Grenada Union of Teachers in this struggle, as they call it.
Public Workers Union, GUT, and TAWU.
Yeah,
and then you have some staff associations. Yeah, I think the prisons and the police, they are not necessarily represented by a union per se, but they have what is referred to as staff association. Where they have people from within, members of their own staff that negotiates on their behalf.
Okay. Now I have an issue, Mr. Bola, and I don't want to sound as if, and I want to speak from a parental point of view this morning. And my issue has to do with the fact that, and correct me, of course, if I'm straying a bit. I continue to pay my taxes, right? I continue to do my duties to the state as it relates to duties and taxes or whatever it may be. This is the government's main source of revenue collection. And I continue to do my duties. Now, this revenue collection, this monies that they collect, these duties and taxes that I pay, is so that my children can be educated. Because the monies that we put into taxes and so on is what goes out to paying salaries and so on at the end of every month. Now, my question is, and my problem is, because there have been reports where teachers are not teaching, they're just issuing assignments and so on. And I have a big problem with that, Mr. Bola. Because although they are in a struggle for their 4% increase, they still receive their salary at the end of February.
They did?
Well, they're still going to.
Okay.
Receive their salary at the end of February. They still receive their full salary at the end of January. But my child is not being engaged the way that she should be engaged. And I have a problem with that.
What are you going to do about the problem?
How do you regulate something like that? So that's my question. How do we regulate something like that?
But I'm asking you a question.
No, I don't want to say on air what I'm going to do, but I already have a plan.
Okay.
But my question is, how do we regulate things like, for example, I am fairly educated enough to assist my children in whatever assignments or whatever work that they have to do. I could simply go and pull up the curriculum and make sure that my daughter is up to date or that my son is up to date with what needs to be taught in the curriculum. I can do that as a parent. There are a lot of parents who are unable to do that or who do not have the time to do these things. And that's why we pay our taxes. That's why we do what we do to ensure that the government has enough revenue so that we can pay our teachers at the end of the month when they teach our children. Now, if an industrial action, Mr. Bowler, for $30, $40, $50, whatever the 4% is going to work up to, is causing my child to lose classroom time, but the teacher is receiving her full salary at the end of the month, how do we regulate something like that? Because the only person suffering here is the child.
Well, it's a tough question to answer in terms of regulating. Because I understand the scenario that you put forward, but I think there are one or two irregularities in what you say. One, I do not accept and submit to the fact that the public servants and teachers in particular are struggling for the 4%. You did use that.
Well,
that
the
statement.
unions have been using it, so.
Because they're using it doesn't mean that it is the correct thing. I do not consider their situation as one of struggling.
Right.
It's a situation where they are entitled, not were, but are entitled to a 4% salary increase, something that the government of the day has signed on to, a contract that the government has started its fulfillment of, because that contract started in 2020. Based on the negotiations that ended in 2019 for the public servants to receive 4% salary increase at the beginning of January, at the end of January, sorry. Well, it's at the beginning, but paid at the end of January 2020. An additional 4% to be paid at the end of January 2021. And then another 4% at the end of January 2022. So in other words, from 2020 to 2022, public servants should be receiving overall, well, when compounded, it's more than 12%. It's 4% per year. But when you put on 4% in 2020 and then 4% in 2021, because there was a 4% increase in 2020, the 4% in 2021 is more or less compounded, and same thing as 2022. So they may be receiving probably overall about 13% at the end of 3 years.
Right.
On paper, it looks like 4%. But, all these technicalities are not important for the matter at hand. Now, the government, as a result of the pandemic, the world over, the economic activities in Grenada, like it has in the rest of the Caribbean and the world, slowed down drastically.
Right.
The government indicated, and not just in 2021, but way early in 2020, since the pandemic came about, that revenue collection has taken a nosedive, has dipped. As a matter of fact, there was one period soon after Grenada had to go in a lockdown situation like most other countries, when the government reported that they are now collecting about 40% of what was expected, or in comparison to 2019 at a particular period. And as time went on, they updated that now it was 50%, and then I think it got up. The last report I heard is that it got up to about 60 or 65% of what was expected. But in other words, as a result, because there was the pandemic, because there was a lockdown, because businesses are not operating as they used to, the tourism sector has gone to zero, and all of that, and taxi and transport services and everything has now come to a halt. The economic progress is not as was planned, and as a result, 2020 saw a deficit of 12% in terms of economic growth compared to 2019. Whatever growth you had in 2019, whatever your collections, whatever your revenue were in 2019, at the end of 2020, you saw a 12% deficit drop, minus in economic growth. So the government then, since 2020, approached the unions and said, this is our situation. So we want you to consider first, and my understanding is that what the negotiators and the government negotiating team did was ask the unions whether or not they will forego the 4% salary increase for 2020. The unions responded, and quite rightly so, I believe, and I give them credit for that, to say that, no, we don't think that we could forgo, but we can defer it. Because it was the unions who first said deferral, because when government went to them, government asked to forgo.
Right.
Forget it, we can't pay it.
Right.
So, don't expect it. The union say, no, let's consider foregoing it for a period of time. Okay, so the government take on board the union's offer and decided, well, yes. But then the union wanted a time we are foregoing, in fact, the public service union said, look, we can defer now instead of foregoing for 6 months. But in order for us to defer for 6 months, so you can't pay it in January, but what about June, July down there? Would you be able to pay? However, they went on to say, if we have to forego, we have to defer, for that 6 months, you must also do these other things.
Right.
Make everybody permanent, blah, 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 what have you. In consideration, what the government side realized is that to accept a deferral for 6 months on the basis that you do all these other things, what will eventually happen is that it's costing more to do all of the other things the public service trade union is asking government to do in order for them to forego the salary increase for 6 months. Yes? So in other words, it just didn't make sense. You're spending more money.
Right.
The others, like the teachers, and so said, look, we need to go back to our workers. We had to go back and speak to the people who elect us in office. And quite rightly so, I think it is what they were supposed to do. And they came back saying, well, we want our money, which I think is the issue that you're having. And as a result, government saying, well, we cannot pay it now. We don't have the revenue stream, the revenue flow. There's not sufficient revenue coming in that will comfortably allow us to increase all public servants' salary by 4%, which some people compute and say, well, it's a little bit, it's 1 point something million a month, by just about 13 point something for the entire year. The government is saying, we don't see how we can sustain that. Even if 1 month looks better than the next and we're able to pay it this month, but to sustain it over over a period, it doesn't look feasible.
Right.
So we're asking for a deferral until the revenues pick up itself again, until the revenues get to a point where we feel very comfortable that we're not only going to pay it, but we can sustain it.
All right. And I want to pause you there for a moment, Mr. Bola, because we speak about these things often, but sometimes it's always good to get not the point of view, but to hear it from the mouth of somebody else. And I think it was Senator Christopher Diali who made mention of this on the Perspectives program that they have, I believe is on Monday mornings. And he put it, I don't want to say in layman terms, but he put it in terms that you can understand. Because sometimes, you and I speak about it, but when we speak about it, they say, oh, well, NNP, they must say that.
Well, I'm an NNP.
Well, yeah,
but
no shame, of course.
I like to be fair, reasonable, and honest across the board.
Right. So let's play this clip here so that individuals would get an understanding of where government is coming from. And he is the senator that is responsible for the public service.
No, for business.
For business, sorry.
Yeah.
So, and when we say business, it more falls along the lines of privately owned.
Yeah, privately owned business. Chamber
so
of
he's
Commerce.
Coming from the private sector's
Private sector.
view. And we also have to remember that while public servants are clamoring for a 4% increase on the government end, there are people in the private sector who are working twice as hard to keep their business afloat so that ordinary Grenadians can also keep their jobs as well. So when you look at it across the board, we have to take into consideration all of these other things as well. But let's take a moment to listen to what Senator Diali has to say. Let me just pause this here because I find I hear it myself too. All right.
Recurrent, when you put a 4% on recurrent, you have to get whatever million, let's say it's 10 million every month
yes.
to pay.
Right. It's
You
not a
need to
one-off.
find revenue, first of all, to match that additional expense every month. The capital spend is a one-off.
A one-off, right.
Right?
you.
You find money for a one-off and it's spent and it's done. But when you add on the 4%, you have to find every month from January, when that became effective. Every more. And you need to make sure the revenues are there. I think this is what government is saying. Government is saying to the public servants, we don't have the revenue capacity yet to pay the 4%. We are going to pay it. We are legally bound to pay it. But give us a chance to bring the economy back up to a level where we can get a surety that when I add on that 4% to you, I have the monies to pay you every month going forward. And that is the difference that I think when they use a Grenada issue, that we need to be clear about. And just like Michael, I think it's unfortunate. I don't want to get passionate about the thing about going in the class and not speaking to students.
Yeah,
I mean, that is just so not teacher-like. I want to say
that is one thing I'm passionate about.
Yeah,
you should not do that to the students.
The other thing I would just add to this, and I've said this before, I think the public servants in Grenada generally is one of the employee groups that have not had to take any sort of major impact of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. All of them continue to be employed. All of them will continue to be at full pay. None of them got cut in pay,
no loss of benefits.
and no loss of anything. But whereas the rest of the private sector and the rest of the Grenadian economy suffered significantly. There are people in the hotel sector that you said coming up in March, 1 year without a
This
job.
month, right? February.
1 year.
No.
And what do you say to those people? And these are a lot of single mothers with children,
Single fathers too.
and single fathers, and it's just as though they have no consideration for that group of people. There are people in the supermarket industry have serious cut in pay, some 20, some 50%. All the small industries.
They might tell you that's not their role. Yeah. Their role, the thing is, it's their 4% and they need it.
Who keeps them? And
it's
their
those
money's
same
paid.
people that
It's those
keep them
same
paid.
people that pay taxes.
Well, you see, sometimes we don't see that far down the
And that is my only thing about it. I'm not saying that the teachers and the public servants shouldn't get a 4%. Yeah. They're contractually due to their 4%. But my goodness, what is wrong in saying be a little patient?
All right, Mr. Bola. So that is it from a different perspective.
Well, it's the same thing. The exact thing.
Exact thing.
Which is the point I made earlier on, that it is not just a case of when 1 month revenue is good that you pay that month.
Yeah.
It is a case of being able to sustain it. You have to do it every single month. Right through, not for a year,
Right.
Not for 6 months, not for 12 months. Once you do the increase, that has to be paid every single month as long as there is a public service and people continue to work.
And I think that's what people are not understanding. It's not that we're going to pay you 4% for 2021 and then for 2022
you revert back to your old salary.
And get another 4%.
No.
If you add that $30 on, it remains there until you are unemployed, no longer employed in the service. And then come next 2022, another $30.
And the 4% of 2022, no, it won't be 30. It will be higher.
Yeah.
Because your gross amount went up. Because 4%. And why are you saying $30?
No, it's a base figure I'm using because that's what people are using as a base figure.
But you must say that because you may get into the minds of some of the listeners
it is $30.
that is just $30 the government have to give people. No, it's 4% based on your gross. Yeah, whatever your salary be, you get 4% on it. So when come 2022, it is 4% on top of what your gross is.
Yeah. I was having a conversation with a teacher and it made me realize that still there are teachers out there and even public servants as well who still don't understand the concept of what is happening, and I was explaining to her what it means for there to be recurrent. Because she asked me the question, she said, well, if government cannot pay the 4%, where do they get the money for Grenada? And I had to explain to her the difference between recurrent expenditure and capital, and it was sad because it's a secondary school teacher, so I would hope that by now they would know these things or at least seek to understand it, because you are fighting for a cause, yes, but you are not understanding the circumstance that has you in the position that you are in, that you have to fight, which is very unfortunate. So it's I don't know if it's education, if it's ignorance. I don't know what it is, because the information is there for who wants it. But I really do hope that good sense will prevail and that the children don't have to suffer, Mr. Bola, because it really burns my heart. Imagine, as Senator Diali and the others were saying, imagine a parent. I work in the hotel sector. I have 2 children. I'm a single parent. And I have to make the sacrifice to buy bread and buy meat and buy whatever else. And the monies that I spend in VAT from buying these things are what pays the teachers. Then I have to go now and make the sacrifice to send my child to school, whether it's 1 day for the week or 10 days for the week. Then I also have to make the sacrifice to make sure that my child has internet connectivity, because I want to make sure that when there's online school, my child does not suffer. Now, all of these sacrifices I am making, and I have to find the dollar to do it, because I am not gainfully employed, or I have not been gainfully employed since February of 2020. Now, this is the same single parent, same mother that is struggling, that is paying taxes and so on, so that revenue can be generated, so that the same teacher who is going into the classroom and not producing what you expect them to produce is being paid from. And that is why I'm saying, where does the regulation come in? How do we regulate something like that? How do we ensure that the children are not on the suffering end of something like this, when the parents who are the ones that are suffering, making the sacrifices to send their children to school to be educated, paying the taxes so that the revenue can be collected to pay the teachers, and the teachers are going to school and making sign language and not engaging the students and all of that? How do we regulate something like that so that our children don't suffer?
I don't know. There has to be a lot more negotiations. There has to be a lot more sit down and discourse taking place between employers, employees, and trade unions. I had a conversation with a trade unionist some time ago, and the issue of productivity came up, and his response was, well, that is not an issue for the union. The issue of productivity, it is not the union's issue. It is an issue for management. And I thought when he said it, I felt he was being unreasonable. But having deeper consideration of the point he's making, he's so correct. It is a issue. It is something that management has to ensure that they put the necessary protocols and structures in place to maximize productivity. The unions can be involved if you want to involve them, but it is not the trade union's role to come and see that work be done. Their role is to ensure that the clientele, who are your workers, are being treated fairly, are being paid equitably, and by Grenada standard, most times we do not pay based on productivity. We pay across the board. Increase comes across the board. Whether you perform or you don't perform, you get, because it is being, the negotiations are being done as a package,
right.
So everyone in that package benefits. So to deal with issues like what you're referring to, I want to believe that there must be some adjustment to the labor laws, probably. I don't know if we have to go that far. In terms of the negotiations for increases, there have to be some standardized system worked out where your people are being paid based on performance. But also, to get all those things happening, it is the same public servants who act as heads of departments and in supervisory position that has to keep the ball rolling, keep the process in train, because it is not the politicians that supervises the public servants. No politicians don't walk into the school to see that a teacher teaches or don't teach. A politician don't go around any one of the ministries, whether it is the ministry that they sit in or so, and go from desk to desk, from 8 to 4, and peep at everybody. No, they expect the senior officers, the heads of department, the SAOs, who are the senior administrative officers, and so they are the ones that must ensure the counterpart, who are same public servants like them, that they do perform and perform to a level that is satisfactory for the remuneration that they are getting.
Yes.
And that doesn't take away from the fact, as I was making the point earlier on, the 4% is something that the public servants are due to. Yeah. They are entitled to it. It was signed for. Government has made a commitment. They have a contractual arrangement. But government is saying, based on the present situation, which has occurred by no fault of ours, not because we mismanaged the economy or because we didn't prepare and plan for your increase, but because of COVID-19, which none of us knew was coming, which none of us could have prepared for, because it was a novel one, it was a new strain, it was something that even the medical experts of the world was not yet prepared to deal with. And so it caused unexpected expenditure, but also drop in revenue. So they're asking, please be patient with us until we reach in a better position.
We have a call on the line. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning, caller.
Can I speak to Mr. Bowler, please?
So you're live on the air.
Okay. Could you tell Mr. Bowler if he can please tell the Prime Minister, please send a representative for us in the Northeast, in Montparnasse specifically. We have a swimming pool in called a road in Montparnasse.
What's the name of the road, caller?
We don't have any.
What's the name of that road?
The Coconut Road.
Coconut Road.
Yeah, I think you have a senator that lives in the same road there.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter who lives there. If the road is really bad, it is something that the Ministry of Works would have to look into.
Just giving you direction.
Yeah. So you call it Coconut Road in Montparnasse?
That's right.
Okay. So what I can promise you is that I will get on to, if not the minister, if I can't get on to the minister, maybe the permanent secretary or someone within the Ministry of Works, and inform them of your concern so they can have one of the officers who probably is attached to that area or the St. George's area to come take a look and bring back some sort of report and have something done to the concern that you're raising.
Well, the Coconut is a big area, so the description I give you there is that's a piece of road, you know.
Okay.
But we need a representative up here too, because I don't think we have any.
You do have a parliamentary representative. Representatives are not for a particular village. It's by constituency. And the Honorable Tobias Clement is the parliamentary representative for the Northeast.
Oh, the Honorable Tobias.
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
He is the parliamentary representative until
probably.
He didn't resign from the parliament.
Oh, I didn't know. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks for telling me.
Yeah. He only resigned from the party. So he doesn't represent NNP anymore.
Please send a representative for us.
All right, sir. I hear you.
Okay.
All right. Coconut Road in Montparnasse.
Okay. Mr. Bola, I want to quickly play another clip, and it speaks to how I feel. You know, that the problem that is happening right now, it's not with the students, but they're the ones feeling the blunt of it. You know, there must be more productive ways in which they can perform their industrial action, which is their right, but also not affect the students that they are being paid to teach. And I say that with no regret, because it's what's happening. At the end of every month, and as Senator Diali said, they are the only set of workers who have not really been affected by the blunt of COVID-19. Our economy has been affected. The amount of revenue we collect has been affected. Private sector workers in most parts have been affected. But public servants continue to, whether they were secretaries in an office and they went home, they were paid and in full. Whether they were not productive for those 3 months because their job required them to be out in the field and they were unable to go out in the field, they were paid in full. You know, so these are the things that we also have to take into consideration. So I want to just quickly play this clip here for the general public.
4% that the public servants are asking for. How do you think that is going to impact? One way or the other.
I think the most unfortunate thing to have a confrontation like that at this time in the country, when we are facing such a serious economic problem. The country the economy has been decimated. And I think it's most unfortunate that at this time you have a confrontation like we're looking at. The teachers and the civil servants are saying that they have a signed document which says that they must get paid their 4%. Okay. The government, on the other hand, is facing a situation where government revenues has been cut in half. And that is easy to see. You can check it and see it.
Yeah.
It seems to me a most unfortunate time if the government's revenues are cut in half and the government expenses are going up as they seek to deal with the spending. Forget who the government is. We like to personalize everything in this country. And it's Keith Mitchell this, Keith Mitchell that. Forget that. You have a situation where government income, their revenues have been cut in half. At the same time, government expenses have gone up as they try to help various things. And at that same time, to be making noise for a 4% increase seems to me most unfortunate. That's my first comment. The second comment, and this is where I think the teachers did something I think was most unfortunate. Everybody has a right to protest and demonstrate. No issue, no quarrel with that. But to make a decision to go into the classrooms and not speak to the students,
yeah.
I could never support that. The students didn't do you anything. Your problem is not with the students. Your problem is with the government. Deal with the government. Argue with the government. But why are you taking this out on the students? Because the students are going to suffer. They got students who look at teacher, miss, and you're not speaking to them. That could have an impact on those children. I think that's the most unfortunate move and not what I would have expected from the teachers. And this does not take away, and I know how I'm going to be misinterpreted, this does not take away from their right to protest or their right to march or wear your placard. So 2 points. One, I think is the most unfortunate time and not the time to be putting that kind of pressure on government finances.
All right, Mr. Bolo, what are your thoughts?
Oh, well, it's something that I spoke about before, even before I've heard that piece from Mr. Archibald. I did see that, even on this program, that I think the unions are lacking innovation. They're not pressing and dealing with the real issue with the employer well enough. Yes, they are making the nation feel the pain for they not receiving the 4%. But is it really the children that are responsible for you not getting what you're supposed to be receiving at this time? It is the government that has come forward and saying, as your employer, look, even though I've promised you, I am not in a position financially stable and strong enough to implement what I have agreed to give to you some time ago. And so I believe that they have to become a lot more creative. They have to negotiate harder. They have to get to the bargaining table and see what else they can make out of the situation with the employer, because doing what they are doing, it's having an effect, but I think it's having an effect on the wrong set of people.
We have another call on the line. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. How are you? Mr. Bola, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Very well, and it's good to hear your voice strong, healthy, and powerful.
Yes, what I wanted, yesterday I was reading an article where one of our neighboring countries, where the economist was asking the government to hurry up and slash the workforce.
Yes.
Close down some sectors, because if they don't, the economy is going to crash. Mm-hmm. And looking at our situation here, right? Where we're not generating as much revenue as we used to, and the government is asking the workers to just hold on a little bit until things get better, and like they cannot see past whatever they're looking at, and if they continue, if the government have to take on that 4% and add it onto its already meager revenue collection, have to pay that out, we are going to have to do the same. We are going to have to slash the workforce and probably, close some sectors. Now, the unions know better. They know, they know all of these things. But I want to believe this is more politically driven than anything else. So the people who would be happy to see the economy crash, they're not thinking about the people. But I think they're looking at a strategy where, okay, if the economy crashed, then NNP would be blamed, and then the people would have no choice than to vote them out of office. But let's go back to 2008. When the government, we just come out of 2 hurricanes, and then there was a whole worldwide recession, and the government was telling them, this is what is happening. You understand? And NDC was telling the people something different. And when they got into office, for 5 years, 5 years, workers got nothing. Well, 4.5 years, from 2008 until 2013, they got nothing, So they need to remember that. To save our economy, the government is trying to save the workforce and to save the economy. And the union and the workers need to look at it from that point of view. If they're still hurting over the salaries that they said that, that the government owe them from when they went on strike, that is not the government problem. It is a union problem, and the union knows that. They know that they are the one that's supposed to pay the people, and not the government. And it's time, the union take on their responsibility and pay the teachers, pay who they're supposed to be paying, and not, have the people blaming, the government duck salary and all of this nonsense, So, we have to, we as a people, we have to think. We have to see beyond the colors. We have to see further. Let us save our economy. Let us save some workers that will eventually be sent home if the government has to pay that 4%. Because the government already has, the government already have to pay the workforce. They're paying the same workforce, the same amount of people, and the revenue has cut drastically. I mean, how are they going to sustain that? Yeah. How will they sustain the economy if they have to pay the 4%? So we have to get past that, And Mr. Bola and Ms. Duncan, have a good day.
Well, thank you so much for your contribution. We do appreciate that. Enjoy the rest of your Friday.
There's a comment on the live video that says, well said. That's so disrespectful. I feel so hurt about the teachers in the classroom and not speaking to the children. I feel like I'm speaking to someone who is ignoring me. And Mr. Bola, that can have some really bad repercussions as well. If as a teacher I go into the classroom and I decide I am not speaking to my students of no fault of theirs, they've done nothing to offend me, but yet I believe that if I hurt them, it would hurt the government, which is very unfortunate to even think about, that you would look at sacrificing the health and not health, but happiness and comfort of a child, of a student, for your own personal gain. That is very, very unfortunate.
Well, I heard a former president of the GUT commenting on that same issue. And his comment was ultra what they did as being very productive for the children. He said silent learning is important. Well, I am not a psychologist, so I don't want to dive into those things. But he gave an explanation. He said that people are saying that what they did in terms of not speaking and not answering on that day and what have you to the students will not damage them psychologically, but assist them in silent. But I mean, we must get the thing and
we have a
review.
Caller. Let's take the caller. Oh, and we seem to have lost him, so you call it. Mr. Bola, while that may be a method in which you would want to use as differentiated learning, you must always remember, and they
Maybe
teach
the caller
that.
is calling back.
And they teach that in schools, that whenever you want to accomplish something with a child, you must outline the objective so that the child understands the reason in why you are doing it. What they did was not in any way differentiated learning. It was not in any way to benefit the children, and it was very counterproductive, because there you had children coming into the classroom saying good morning and the teacher is not answering. What nonsense about differentiated learning. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Ms. Duncan.
Hi,
good morning, Brother Bola.
Good morning to you, sir.
I'm very in support of that last caller. That's a very sensitive point that caller made. I was thinking about that since the whole of this week here. I thought that all what the government have to do, don't make no noise. Noise in the market is not a sale. Mm-hmm. All what you have to do, if you have 100 workers in a pay, you can't afford to give 4%. Pay 60 people, send on 40, and let it feel the pinch. You understand? Because you don't have a way, no means to get the money to pay them. Yeah. So go in Parliament, you have the majority, pass the law, pass laws. If the people want you at the end of the day, is either the one good or the one bad. No, we have to take stand what's going to be very progressive for the country, and not just you as an individual. If the country cannot pay, they cannot pay, and if they could pay half of the people, or at 100, they pay half. No disrespect. Thank you. Have a good morning.
You have a blessed one too. It's one way of looking at the scenario, but I don't think it's the only way to look at it. Consideration must be given that if you have to cut the service. And it is not the first time that this government is being faced with that. Remember when the government came back into office in 2013, and incidentally today is marking 8 years since 2013 that the NNP reverted back to office. Yes? So congratulations and happy birthday, NNP government.
Anniversary, not birthday.
Anniversary? Well, sorry. But I was going to make a point about the advice I was given, but let's take this call and then I'll come back to that.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Miss Duncan.
Hi, good morning.
And good morning to Mr. Bola.
Very blessed morning to you, sir.
Now, Mr. Bola and Miss Duncan, as I continue to listen to the discussion over a period of time, the question I want to ask here this morning is, why are they so hard on the government, despite the fact that they have been literally untouched at a time when most of the workforce have been disadvantaged and continue to suffer? While at the same time, these folks continue to receive their wages and salaries in a timely manner. So I'm asking here this morning, where is the patriotism? Where is the empathy we expect from our teachers? Where is the motherly and fatherly love that we associate with these folks? Mr. Bola,
The question I'm asking is why. I trust you all guys will have a pleasant weekend.
You as well, eh? And that's a really good way to ask it.
Yeah.
After making that statement, he has become the very trained and well-learned caller. Eh? He puts the point there. Why? And remember some time ago we had this discussion that sometimes when people do things or say things, don't just listen to what they say, but always question the why.
Motive, yeah.
What is the motive? What do they hope to achieve at the end of the day from behavior in the way they are behaving, from what they are doing? What is it they want to achieve? Is it just the 4%, which, by the way, was never said you won't have it, you know?
Yeah.
Or the government is saying, you cannot have it right now.
Yeah.
Let's defer it to sometime down the road.
And I saw a representative from the Public Workers Union on the news the other night saying that, oh, well, we want to know when. But it's very, I don't even use the word unfortunate, that you're asking the government to give you a date. If the government could foresee when the economy would get better, you really think we would be in the position that we are in?
And we'll come back and talk about that.
And we will. Let us take this call. Hello. Hi, good morning.
Hi, morning, sir.
Yeah. Mr. Bola and Duncan, I know we have to say that Grenada is a Christian country. I know sometimes we speak a lot about that. Alright? I want to let people know that Christianity is not something that we speak. But Christianity is something that we have to practice.
Yes.
Right? We have to practice. And if we say that we love one another, right? We should not only think about ourselves. Think about the people that we may get hurt. That if the government go ahead and to fulfill that promise, a lot of people will be hurt. Right? And see, when you're doing things, you have to take other people into consideration. Am I receiving something and other people will get left behind? And if we say the country is a Christian country, we have to look at people. Look at people and look at if I get in, if we hurt somebody. And if we say that, if we know that we're getting something and some other people will get left behind, I still believe we should take that into consideration. We should take it into consideration and say, well, normally I prefer, let I hold back until things come back to normal, that where the government is able to have the money to pay, right? To pay. We have no many people that we speak of Grenada a Christian country. But then Christianity is not a word that we speak. It's a word that we have to abide with and obey the word of Christ. Right? We have to obey the precept of God, right? And we do it. Right? And that's my favorite word. Because God says, if we be a hearer of the word, we speak the word, but we don't put the word into action. Right? We are really just in vain. Right? So we must have to take into consideration the other people when we want to receive something. We should not want to let people ignore some and I get what I want.
Yep.
We call it selfish love. Right? So I want to say it to the Grenadian people. Most of them, we have to put aside our politics, but we have to look at people, the needs of people. Right? We have to need people. Yes, normally we may support their party. Right? And if the party does something wrong, we will speak about it. And if the other organizations do something wrong, we have to speak about it. We don't hate the person, but we have to let them know. Then look at other people. If they get in, are they affecting other people from not getting? And when you look at other people, you can make everyone make the right decision when the right damage. So, Mr. Duncan, Mr. Bola, you all have a wonderful day.
You have a blessed one and enjoy your weekend. It's Friday. Yes. I was before going to make the point, Mr. Duncan, that I've heard this government being accused of anti-workers government. You know, that when it comes time for the workers of the country to get something, they never want to pay. But let's go back, as we were talking 2013, and celebrating 8th year anniversary. When this government came into office in 2013, and we had a bad economic situation, where our economy was growing minus, it was less than zero. Yeah, when there was no positive economic growth, when public servants never got an increase, they weren't even getting their increments and all these sort of things, and the government moved into a structural adjustment program. One of the advice that came from leading economists around the world is that the public service in Grenada at the time was too large.
Yeah.
And that the government should move into a retrenchment. I remember just around that time, Barbados went into a retrenchment with over 3,000 public servants were retrenched.
Yeah.
And this government said, look, you know what? The NNP government said, we came from a period of great uncertainty, tough economic times, high unemployment, which was 30 plus or 40 or whatever percent. People had not been enjoying the best of times. Salaries had not been increased. So here's what we'll do. Rather than having retrenchment, which means you cut and you send people home, let's do something different. And that is where the attrition policy came in place, saying, well, the public service is too large and we have to get it smaller and more manageable. But for every 10 people that retire, government is only going to hire 3.
Right.
Right? Every 10 that retire, 3 will be rehired. In other words, you are cutting, but slowly, with less pain, less problem for the workforce. Right? Although they were advised, said, look, to get out of this bad economic situation that you're in, this is the best thing to do. Yeah. Send 2,000, send 3,000 home. But the government did not agree with the advice and decided to do something differently. And they did differently. And we have achieved well. We came out of a structural adjustment program. We've seen in the last 8 years that the public servants of this country had received salary increases 5 times already. 5 years out of those 8. The very year 2013, when the government came into office, there was a 4% increase. As a matter of fact, 1 month after the government took office in February, it was March. 1 month after, they paid February month-end salary, and by March they had to pay salaries increase, which was negotiated for by the previous administration, but had to be implemented after the election. Right? So NNP won, NNP had to pay, which they did 1 month after coming into office. Let's not forget. Went on after that, negotiated with the unions and said, look, the workers must get back pay for all the years that they did not get an increase, which amounted to a total of $44 million. And the government found a way, couldn't pay it all at the same time, but in tranches. I think they made 3 separate payments. But all of the workers, including the teachers, got their back pay. So the 4% salary increase in 2013, and between 2013 and 2014 got up to $44 million in back pay.
We have a caller on the WhatsApp. Hello, good morning. Hello, caller, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Yeah, morning.
Morning, man. Long time didn't hear you.
And Mr. Bowler?
Yes, good morning.
Hello.
Hello, yes, we're hearing you.
Yeah, how are you doing this morning?
We're good. How are you?
Not too bad at all. Yes, I just want to share my views or my 2 pence on the ongoing, should I call it, impasse between the Public Workers Union, the teachers, and the government. And as many persons before expressed their views. I mean, I don't know, but I feel so strongly about the action taken by the teachers, the different things that they plan during the week, the current week, and what they have been even doing before. And to me, the situation is not difficult to understand. And but we have a way of modeling up everything and colorizing everything, and then we turn around and we blame. But we also behave as though the increase, the 4% increase that is agreed upon, that was agreed upon or is agreed upon, comes from the politicians' pocket, from the ministers of government. It's very unfortunate. People are not looking at the state's ability to pay Yeah. It's the state, it's not the politicians that paying, it's the state that is paying. It's we that have to pay. True. Right? It's not the politicians, but we look at it as though it's a politician. And even the blind will be able to understand and see that the country is just not in a position to pay the 4% increase at this point in time. Nobody's saying that the 4% increase will not be paid. It was an agreement that was signed, it was a contractual arrangement, and government has honored its commitment in the past, and I know the government is going to honor it, and the government is just not in a position, the country is just not in a position to pay at this point in time. But additionally, among all the sectors, the public sector workers and the teachers were least affected. They lost no income during that period. There are some people who would not have made a normal day's work in maybe almost a year. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about the different sectors that were badly affected, by the pandemic. Something that was unforeseen. Nobody brought that upon ourselves, and so on. So I'm just appealing to the public workers and the teachers and the unions to show understanding. I expect these people as teachers and senior public officers to be more understandable than that, to be more reasonable than that. So I just do not understand it. But there are those out there who are agitating and instigating and trying to bring about sedition and so on. I listened to a program last night on GBN, and it was most unfortunate. A program called what? Release It. The host and a former CEO of a reputable company in Grenada. They treat this thing, they trivialize this thing. They just treat this thing in a very frivolous manner and trying to give the public the impression that the government is in a position to pay. What is 4%? What is 4%? Man pay the teachers the 4%. And these people talk a lot about, they speak a lot about untruth, and they're trying to control people's mind. Because, Grenada is one of the freest places. People say whatever they want. Sometimes they lie, they lost in terms of what they're saying, they malign people's character and all of that. But they're still talking about free speech, and so on. And people have been threatened, people are afraid to speak. I won't say that nonsense. While they are saying that, they're saying they won't, they're saying whatever they want, Yeah. While they are saying that, they are saying just whatever they want, and so on. And trying to give the impression that the government could pay, let them pay. Pressure them to pay. I heard another NDC spokesperson about 3 weeks ago, on To The Point again, another GBM program, was saying that if they found the $63 million to repurchase the majority shares from WIV in Grand Lake, they could go back under the mattress and find another 12 or 13.2 million. That's a plenty money. When we speak like that, sometimes Lord help us. And some of these people who are aspiring to lead this country, I wonder, God forbid, that they should never, at this point in time, given the chance, the opportunity, because it tells me that they do not understand how an economy has been managed, how it's been run, and so on. And promising pie in the sky that is not reachable, certainly. And they don't have the ability to do that, because we know that they have been in office twice before. Yeah. And the second time was even worse than the first time. Yeah. But why is it that in the period 2010 to 2012, when the then government of the day, the NDC government, how comes that the teachers and the public workers union, right, understood then that the country was not in a position to pay, and they were prepared to wait? So, because remember, so the 2010, 2011, 2012 negotiations, right, that was paid, they couldn't honor it then. So those monies were paid.
We lost, It probably moved from the position.
Yes.
That over 3 year period, yes. Right? 2012, 2010, 11 and 12 was paid between the period 2013 and 2014.
Yes.
2013 and 2014 by the
$44 million in back pay.
NMP government.
Yeah. $44 million in back pay.
Yeah, 45 million. Yeah. So the 6% increase and the one-off payment was paid by the incoming government. Yes. And so on. So people have to. So how comes at that time they were not looking towards the politician to pay, but they were looking at the country's ability? So how comes now they're speaking as though they expect the politicians to the money coming from the politicians' pocket? I just don't understand. And when you look at the some of the teachers' behavior, because I've seen some of the behavior in my area, or I've seen some of these younger teachers, And I've said with due respect to some teachers, and I was saying that to one teacher sometime on Monday, with due respect to him, because I look at him as, a respectable teacher, somebody who understands. I was saying, with due respect to you, teachers are not teachers of all.
Mm-hmm. Seems we lost him again.
Yeah. That's the trouble with the
WhatsApp. You have to be in a consistent area.
Mm-hmm.
So caller, if you are listening to us, we lost you for a moment, so maybe you can try calling back again when you find a more consistent connection. But he was making a very good point. He made a few really good points.
And he ended on the point that I ended on in allowing his call to come true. When I was talking about the salary increase and the $44 million in back pay, that back pay that NNP paid when they came in 2013 is for all the years during NDC period in government that they did not give a salary increase.
Yep.
So you had to pay them for that. That is the NNP doing that. And then we went into the structural adjustment program where, again, the unions agreed with government that you should go on a wage freeze for 2 years or so, no increase, because you're trying to recoup and build the economy back and make things happen properly for the economy, grow the economy. That happened. At the end of the structural adjustment program, the government went about and said, look, while it's not a salary increase or so or a back pay, but we'd give back something to the workers for the sacrifices. Now remember, the private sector workers also made sacrifices during the structural adjustment program. But the public servants did get on 2 separate occasions a one-off payment, which amounted to almost $2,000 in some instances. You negotiated again. And then there was salary increase for 2017, 2018, 2019. 3% January 2017, 3% January 2018, 4% January 2019. And during 2019, you negotiated for another 3 years, which was for 2021 and 22. They got the 4% January 2020, was expected to get 4% January 21 and 4% January 22. Right? So 5 times in 8 years, they've gotten the increase plus $44 million in back pay. And only this year, which would have made it 6 years in a row that they were getting salary increase. The government said this is the present situation with the economy. No joke, no lie. Government went on talking about date, give a date, and said to the unions, their negotiators said, listen, while we can't put a fixed date because it is dependent on the economy being able to support the 4% increase and sustain it over time. Not just give it and then next month say, well, we can't pay it, or the following month we go give you half of it. You have to sustain it once you implement it. So we don't have a fixed date when the economy is going to get to that stage, but we're working towards that. So here's what we'll do. The negotiations, the meetings, the discussion will continue on a quarterly basis. So every 3 months, let us sit again. Let us examine the government books. Let us look at the revenue collection. Let us look at where we were 3 months ago to where we are now. And together, we are going to determine. And the government negotiators went further to say that our interpretation of where we are economically, you don't have to accept as a union. You can find your own independent economists, accountants, analysts, whatever you want. Take the figures and let them put it together and analyze it and advise you whether or not the economic situation has improved to the point where it can now sustain the increase, or if it's not. So we are opening up our books to you. We are giving you an opportunity to find your own people, not just take what we say, because if you don't believe us, find independent people who can do it. So I have found those issues to be very reasonable.
Of course.
And, where the dialogue can continue, where you can go into one of those dialogues and say, well, look, based on what our independent analysts told us, maybe you can't pay 4% now. You can't sustain 4%. But at least they believe if you add 2, it can be sustained. I see this as being much more productive than going into the classroom and not speaking to the children. Or talking about no text day or Black Friday and this, that, and the other. It is their right. And make no mistake about it, don't misinterpret what I am saying. It is the right of the teachers to protest. But in doing so, try and not harm and hurt and fracture the future of the innocent children. They're not deserving. And you know what? Teachers have the greatest role in shaping the minds and characters of our leaders for today and tomorrow.
Yes.
And when we do that to them, and they grow with the wrong attitude and the wrong character, bet your bottom dollar, accept the fact that all the teachers in Grenada in present day decide that they go retire and travel elsewhere to live. These are the people that will be the leaders of tomorrow. And we will be in our golden years.
Yes.
So we should not be surprised with what is meted out to us when they
become our leaders.
Become our leaders.
It's true.
Because we have not trained them properly. We have not taught them how to resolve the conflicts and problems that they have in an amicable way.
Yeah.
We have instilled in them that it is steel for steel, concrete for concrete. Let's fight them, brass and steel.
Yeah.
Stand up and fight back. Don't give up your rights. We are fighting for what is legally ours. You don't have to fight for it. It is yours, and it will be given to you. The government is simply saying to you, we don't have it now. You know, a guy was drawing a reference to me. He said, if a guy owes me $500, and I was expected to get it at a certain time, and when that time comes around, the guy says to me, well, look, I really wanted to, and I was expecting it from elsewhere, or I was hoping this would happen or that would happen, but it didn't work out for me, so I just don't have it. He said, you know, if I chop his hand off, or I knock him down, or I send him to hospital with a blow, that still doesn't give me the 500.
Yeah.
If he doesn't have it, what will be better is for us to sit down and walk out. How then can I get it? Okay, you don't have the 500 to give me now. Can we work something different and you give me 100 next month and 50 the following month or whatever? But getting on in an aggressive, disruptive manner still doesn't make the money become available.
Absolutely.
And what we need to do is act with good sense to assist with the situation. And as a previous caller asked, what is the motive? Is it just getting our 4%? This is a question that needs to be asked and something that needs to be examined. And the most recent caller said, what had happened during the period 2008 to 2013? I can't recall once there was a protest for wage increase or for anything. It seemed as though during that era, industrial action went to sleep.
Yeah.
What has awakened now?
I have a question on the Facebook, the WhatsApp, and then I'll go to the Facebook Live. It reads, good morning, Ms. Duncan and Brother Bola. A question. I am aware that there was a reduction in the electricity cost to electricity customers early in the pandemic. Was this as a result of the government's negotiation with Grenlec? Did government have to pay Grenlec for the relief of to the electricity customers? I ask because although public officers lost no salary, they too benefited from the relief. This means that having a job and receiving a salary, they benefited from the COVID pandemic. Maybe that is the reason they are saying, forget the others and just pay me.
I don't know if that's the reason. That's part of the question I can't answer. But yes, to the fact that government had to pay Grenlec. I don't remember how much millions now. That we can verify. I did know the figure, but it never stuck in my head. But it was a joint. I think Grenlec contributed 30% and government, because when government went forward to ask for the reduction, I think they came to an agreement where Grenlec was going to, as the company, was going to participate. But I think government had the bigger slice. So I think overall, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe I should not give a figure because I'm not sure exactly in my mind how much it was, but whatever it came up to, government had to pay up about 70% of it. And it was a couple of millions of dollars. And yes, everybody who had electricity in Grenada, whether you are a public servant or not, benefited from that.
Right. Yeah. There's a comment here that reads, God is looking at all actions. The country belongs to all of us. Even the blind could see that the economy is at a big loss. And every month we all receive our salary on time. Hats off to the government. People are too selfish. Learn to think before taking action.
I'm not saying that they're not thinking. Probably they're not thinking correctly. So I am not saying they're not, because I think teachers in general are fairly intelligent individuals. I think they know, but I also understand that the issue of money can make people become very emotional
and irrational
at times. But as the person with the comment suggested, is that we need to think a little more, think a little harder. Let's look at the factors that are responsible for where we are and what is happening, and stop allowing the emotions to take control. I mean, money is something that causes a lot of people to act indifferently. Yeah. But I think Grenada, especially the public servants and the teachers in particular, are wise people. A lot of them are very academically inclined. We have many of our teachers that are within the professional realm. They have certificates of high level. Maybe not much of them having doctorates, but of course bachelor's degrees and what have you. And that should account for something. That should allow them to do critical thinking. Not just the academics, but understanding life and how life should go and the challenges that we'd face, and how we should deal with it, how we should respond to challenging times, and what negotiations are like, and how do you go forward without fracturing and damaging other people's plan and the movement forward. So
I want to give you a joke. I don't know.
Well, it's not just me, but remember, all of us are listening. You.
But recently, I was speaking to one of my friends who happens to be a teacher. I have a lot of teacher friends. So we were having a discussion about the 4% and so on, and I asked her, I said, "So you're going on March Friday?" She said, "No, I ain't going on March, but I want my 4%. I wear in my jersey and I participate in." I say, let me ask you a question. When you go and march and...
Well, she said she wasn't going and march, so why are you asking her?
No, but I'm asking her the question. When you go and march and you wear your jersey and you participate in No Talk Day and all of that, do you really think that these things are going to force governments to give you the money? The 4%. She said, well, it might not force them to do it, but it will have an impact. So I asked her, I said, well, who is really this action impacting? Who exactly is the beneficiary of this? Who sits on the other side and is feeling the brunt of what you do? So I said to her, I said, when you go to the classroom and you do not speak, when you do not engage your children, when you do not provide them with instruction, which is important, because I hear them talking about differentiated learning and talking about the No Talk Day and all of that, while maybe silent learning, as they call it, they're always finding a new name for something, is probably a part of differentiated learning. As a teacher, you are supposed to provide instruction, regardless of if you want to call it silent.
But they did through sign language, I understand.
No, them trying to know sign language. We don't have that school. These teachers are not trained in the art of sign language, nor are the children learning sign language. So that's not even a good.
No. I'm just saying what I heard. But you're saying the instructions, they must be given instructions.
They must be given
for silent learning, which I think was the terminology that the gentleman used. Silent learning.
Instruction. So whether you
through sign language.
No, they're not instruction. So let me ask you a question. How did they say turn to page XYZ? Did they write it on the board? If a child does not understand what is written on page XYZ, how then does the teacher instruct that child? Guide that child into what? So basically the children went to school and they were unproductive because they'd probably learned the same thing that they learned 10 weeks ago or whatever, because the teacher would have to regurgitate something that they already know to avoid them from having to actually teach, right? Now, my biggest question to her was, who is on the other end of this, receiving the blood? She said, the children. I say, but do you agree that they deserve this? She said, well, if government don't want to pay, then it's the children that have to suffer. Those were her comments. I don't want to say she was ignorant to what she was saying or she didn't understand it. Or, some people in conversation, they would hear something from somebody else and just spit back out whatever it is they hear as an explanation. Then I said to her, do you believe that if government had the money to pay that they would not pay? She said, well, I don't know. I said, so how is it? What did the union say to you? Because this is what I am trying to gather, basically. I want to know what explanation was given to the teachers to make them simply believe that government has the money and they're not paying it, right? Because there must have been a conversation of some sort for them to. And she said, well, we didn't really hear anything, they just say do X, Y, Z. And that is where the conversation ended, because I felt like it was a waste of time. They didn't receive any explanation. They were just told
to act in a particular way. And of course, they acted because they are loyal. They are loyal and obedient teachers. So the unions say, wear yellow, red jersey today, they wear red. Wear black on Friday, they wear black, without giving a rationale for doing it and what is the expected outcome from that action that I'm asking you to take. So I'm saying that while they are very intelligent and academically inclined and they are luminaries in their own field, they are not doing a lot of critical thinking, in my opinion. And that's my opinion. So I'll leave a lot of vex with me, because I'm just giving my opinion from what I view, what I analyze, right? Which may be very wrong. Which may be very wrong. But unless you provide me with other reasons to think otherwise, I'm saying that you are not doing very critical thinking, because from the discourse that you had with that friend of yours who said, well, they have not told us anything. They have not given us the rationale for doing what they are doing. They have not even discussed whether, and why would government, as I keep saying, the government in a statement said, listen, to do a deferral in the final analysis is going to cost the government more money all at once. Because here's what, if this thing prolongs until 2022, instead of having to do an increase of 4%, the government in 2022 will then have to be increasing salaries by 8%. Because you had forgo 2021. So now you must implement what you were supposed to give then, plus what you're supposed to give in 2022. But that's not all. You also have to now do retroactive payment. Because remember, that increase should have taken effect in January of 2021. And for as long as you did not do it, it means that
money accumulates.
The money is accumulating. So the public servants will have to get what is called a lump sum, what we commonly refer to as a back pay. That is what causes a back pay. Because something that was supposed to take place at a particular time did not happen, and in this case, payment increased. an increase of 4% to your wages. It didn't happen. So for every month that you did not receive it, it has to be there like banking up for you.
Yeah.
So when the time comes that they actually say, no, we are in a position to implement, they also have to consider finding a certain sum, which will be a couple of millions, to pay you for the period that you did not receive. So it is not a benefit to government to have the money and not pay it.
And not pay it. So basically, they're getting their money as a back pay. In other words.
Right. But one has to understand, we don't want it as a back pay. We want it now. We deserve it. It's supposed to be implemented. Implement it. And I understand that. But the government is saying, well, we don't have it to give you now. We are trying to find a way to grow the economy, to have a revenue stream that can sustain paying you that. And when that comes around, when we achieve that, we also have to be in a position to pay you for all the months we did not pay you.
Yes.
So I understand the pain now, but there will be some pleasure later on. And I'm not saying that you just have to fall for it that way. You must continue to negotiate and discuss and call in the government negotiators and say, look, we have this idea. How can this work? How can that work? But the actions, and that's where, like you and like most other people, that is where I have, a disjointed sort of difference with the actions that are being taken.
Yeah.
I do not see how these actions are going to benefit the teachers in getting the 4%.
Because it's not like government is saying we're not giving you the money at all. Basically, you're looking at it as a savings, because if you were supposed to get $30, and I'm using that as a figurative figure, if you're supposed to get $30 every month for 12 months, and government say, okay, we cannot give you that $30 every month for 12 months, but at the end of the year, we will give you that $30 that you are supposed to receive every month for 12 months as a lump sum.
Well, like $360 that you will pick up.
If that is the case, then it means you're getting your money.
Plus, you increase.
You increase, right? You're getting your money. You're just getting it all at the end of the month. But that does not touch, and that is what is really bugging me. That does not touch your current salary. Nothing is being done to your current salary. So all of the productivity that you are supposed to put into teaching and whatever work you're doing as a public servant should still happen, because you are being paid on a monthly basis a full salary to do that. So this is where I am conflicted, because I cannot see how I can, at the end of the month, collect a salary for work that I did not do.
You know, someone is saying that we have to look at Grenada in comparison to, I'm not seeing it clearly, to other islands, I think, or something.
In this season.
In this season.
Yes, aren't we proud that our administration and its proven astute decision-making ability. But Mr. Bola, let's go right back to that as soon as we take this call. Hello, good morning.
Oh, yes. Good morning to you.
Hi, good morning.
And good morning to the doc.
Good morning to you, sir.
It's always happening here to you, sir.
Yeah.
I had been listening from the beginning. I didn't want to call, but you say so much things that really just shook me. You know, you're so right to say diplomatic and so balanced in your way of thinking. I commend you for your smartness. I call it not smartness, but wisdom.
Thank you. If you think I'm a wise old head, I am grateful for that.
That is true. That's from the heart. No, I don't want to deal too much with it, because you see the problem we have at hand is solvable. But I want to go back to my early discussions maybe 45 years ago. That's a long, long time, and I had been saying the economy. I will never work with anybody and represent the company without representing my client and my staff. That's why I do management. I represent to bring some benefit to my company. I represent the company through my staff and my clients outside there. That is where the survival is. And if you pay attention to the development, economic development of the people, the workers, the staff, your problem is solved. Over the years, I think we failed to do that. Now we're scrambling to see how we could build the economy. That was supposed to be done a lot of years ago. And that is where the problem is. Now, how are we going to fix that? It's very, very difficult, because no, you cannot find the revenue to actually do a lot of things that you want to do. And so I would suggest that we sit around the table and see how we could solve the thing. Because down the road, I have a projection, and the projection is not pretty. If we cannot solve this matter within the next maybe year, it could be very devastating for this country, for all of us. We can't waste time. We can't play games. We can't play the politics. We have to be real. Let us find a way of settling this matter now, because you see, if we wait too long, we will not be able to pull anything back. We have to remember the teachers, not the teachers, but remember the children, and the economy. What would happen to the economy then if we cannot get this thing going? Everybody's going to suffer. So I don't want to lay blame on government. I don't want to blame the teachers. But the economy was supposed to be prepared long before. From 1951 to today, yes, we have made some progress. That's on what you call infrastructure side a lot, but we did not make much progress on the development of the people. And that is how the economy grew in real terms, when people are growing economically, right? So we have to pay attention to that. If we are not going to allow people a chance to grow economically, everybody's going to suffer. That is where the problem is. And I think that is where I'm hearing it coming from people. Yes, we want to settle, but look at things is so tight for all of us now. Gone are the days when people were just walking to work. Now, nearly every teacher have a car. Every teacher have a car. Every civil servant have a car. So their salary is on the button to pay back the bank, you know? And so we have to understand where they're coming from. But I think the government have to find a way to settle this matter and settle it. I'm talking to the union too, expeditiously, to avoid a total disaster. Pandemic is here. The large countries are not going to help us. They cannot help us. They have no problem than us. So where do we turn? That's why I always said in the past, let us try to be more independent of ourselves, so that if something like this sort come around, because I saw this thing coming, then we'll be able to hunker down for a while and take care of it. But let me say this for the last time, because when I say things, I don't make no joke with it. I did ask you to convey to the PM that he should take up his portmanteau and see what kind of diplomatic shuttle he could do. But I'm saying again, we need to move to the point where the countries of the region have to do position paper to the World Bank, the IMF, and the United Nations to take responsibility for what is happening in these countries, small countries. They have to pay us some money on a monthly basis to take care of our citizens individually, up to $5,000 a month. I'm very serious about that, because if they're not going to do that, our economy is going to continue to fall, and we are going to crash. They bring this pandemic to us. They have to be responsible for the state of our economy and the state of our citizens. It's no joke. We have to make representation on that level. It's like an inflation, but we have to do it sooner than later. Other than that, we all going to suffer. They have to take responsibility for what they are doing to the small countries. Right. I want to leave it as well.
Well, thank you so much. As per usual, we are appreciative of your comments.
I have two comments on the live I want to read, Mr. Bola. One reads, good day. What is the last time, or when, was the last time that the minimum wage bill was revised? Some wages be increased along with, be increased along with inflation, not just for public servants, but employees in the private
sector. Okay, yeah, we get that.
Another comment reads, as the previous caller said, we just have to look at Grenada in comparison to the other islands. In this season, aren't we proud that our administration and its proven astute decision-making ability And no, I will not raise my blood pressure according to this caller here.
Okay.
I would not raise my blood pressure.
Well, that's very good. But I wanted us to just mention, because I think there was a statement coming out of Trinidad, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
where
by
they are
the
being
former
advised.
Yeah, by the former deputy governor of the Central Bank
of Trinidad.
Who is an economist, obviously.
You're right.
And he said he made a statement saying that the Minister of Finance, they stated that the economy was in deep trouble, and that the Minister of Finance could not avoid cutting the size of the public service and increasing the utility rates. That was a statement that he made.
So what we're going to do, we just leave that out there because we're winding down on time. I think we're getting close.
We are.
And hopefully, if we should survive the weekend and God grant us the mercies of seeing another new week, I think Monday, God's willing, we can read the entire text. Now, it doesn't say that the Trinidad and Tobago government will do that. It is an advice being given to them to cut the public service. So that means if you're talking about retrenching and cutting, there's no increase in salaries coming to them. Trinidad and Tobago is a country far larger than Grenada, but also has more natural resources. I mean, the oil and natural gas and what have you. They have been advised by a former chairman or manager, whatever you call it, governor of their central bank. It's like Brother Timmy and Twine saying to the government of Grenada, do this to the economy or do that. Yeah? Well, I mean, he's current, so let's say Dwight Venner, who was the past, because that one is past, yes? Not the current one. But I think it's rather interesting, and it fits nicely into the conversation and the context in which we have been discussing the way forward. Added to that, there's also something that will come on stream soon. I mean, it has started already, where we can look at seeing a lot of increases in the prices of ordinary food stuff. I think it has started with flour already, flour and animal feed, and because of that, the increase in animal feed, we're seeing the price of eggs and chickens on the local market or the locally produced ones going up. Quite likely the imported ones will increase a bit too, because the increase in feed and flour and so is as a result of the increase in some of the raw materials like wheat and corn and soybean and what have you. So the pandemic, one, plus weather conditions, too, the fact that a lot of borders are being closed, so for the aircraft or the ships that travel now to bring these items from the port where they are being produced to here where they are being consumed, there is a maybe increase in freight and all those things, and those things do affect the final selling price. It has very little to do with government or the increase in taxes, because government has not increased any tax.
Right.
According to my knowledge. But there you have in Trinidad, they are being advised to increase utility rates, to cut the public service and things like that. While in Grenada, we're saying, come what may, we want with 4%. But, my friends, these are issues that we'll have to continue to discuss. This is our nation. This is our country. We have to prepare for our future and the future of our children. It has been good being with you, speaking with you. We want to thank everyone for the comment, whether you send it via WhatsApp or Facebook, or you made a call, or maybe you just sat there and listened and had a little smile. Maybe you thought of something you wanted to call to tell Mr. Bola in agreement or in disagreement with what he said, or with Ms. Duncan, but you probably didn't get through or didn't further the thought. Whatever it was, we feel happy that we were able to share part of your morning with you. We want to wish that the rest of your Friday will be good, that you will continue to stay safe, that you will continue to follow the protocols, even though at this point in time we are not aware of any medically proven active COVID case in Grenada. What is happening just in our neck of the woods, just around us with our sister and brother countries, we need not drop our guard. So I say, do have a wonderful weekend. I think the curfew has been pushed back to 12 o'clock, giving people a little more time to be out for a little longer. But please remember to wear your mask, sanitize your hand, wash with soap and water as regularly as you can. As regular as you can, not regularly, as regular as you can. And make sure that you keep yourself, your loved ones, especially your seniors, safe and secure. And if you do have the time and it's available to you, please, I urge, go get your vaccine.
All right,
Take
guys,
care.
we have come to the end of our program for this week and for today. In whatever you do and whatever you say, be safe and be secure. We always want to be talking with you here at Hard Talk. We don't ever want to be talking about you. So please do enjoy the remainder of your day. Have a wonderful weekend and stay tuned for the National Report.
Nightly curfew continues, but with shorter hours. We'll have details to this story and more in the National Report. With the details to the news for Thursday, February 18th, 2021, I am Rikisha St. Louis. The nightly curfew in Grenada will continue, but with shorter hours. The Emergency Powers Amendment regulations states that the curfew will now be imposed from 12 a.m. to 4 a.m., effective February 18th, 2021. Only recently a decision was taken to end the curfew at 4 a.m. instead of 5 a.m. The Ministry of Health reiterates that as the nature of the pandemic changes and the threat to lives evolve, the government will continue to take steps in the best interest of the public. The public is therefore reminded to adhere to the COVID-19 protocols, maintain physical distance, wear a mask, especially when physical distancing cannot be maintained, avoid large gatherings, and regularly wash or sanitize hands. Prime Minister Dr. The Right Honorable Keith Mitchell has expressed satisfaction with the quality of work done so far on the Willis playing field. Dr. Mitchell visited the field on Wednesday evening and was provided with an update on the progress of work. He said historically New Hampshire has produced some outstanding sportsmen and women, but the facilities have never been of a first-class standard. With the emergence of more young people in the community, Dr. Mitchell said government, through the Ministry of Sports, saw the urgency in upgrading the facility.
Having Hanover Company here, we felt that they have the expertise to give us that help. So I'm particularly pleased with the development of this facility and where it looks today, because this ground, when it is completed and grassed, could be one of the best facility in the country, comparing with Progress Park and Queen's Park and Boucherjou and other place around the country. So I'm particularly pleased with what I've seen here develop.
The scope of works, Dr. Mitchell says, goes beyond the upgrade of the physical playing field to include some bleachers on a section of the perimeter of the field.
We always know that our young people, when you invest in their development, and sports is an important part of their development, you'd always gain reward for it, because your growth of your young people is certainly correlated with the growth of the nation as a whole. So I'm happy to say this, and we look forward. I want to compliment the attempt of the drainage, because we all know one of the reasons that Queen's Park is seen as one of the better grounds in the region is that when rain falls in Queen's Park, it doesn't settle. So rain falls, and in a couple of hours, you can start playing sports day again because of that drainage facility. So doing that here is also key for the community as a whole. So I'm very happy with this, and I want to just compliment Hanover Company and the Ministry of Sports and the community as a whole for where we have reached so far, and they can rest assured that we will complete it.
Dr. Mitchell was accompanied by Acting Coordinator of Sports, Curlon Peters, and representatives from Hanover Construction Company, Grenada Limited, which is executing the project. Mr. Peters is also very pleased with the progress of the work.
We planting grass that we had taken out from Vendome, and we, if you look at the field, we see some areas, and we're also applying vertical grass on the area. We're hoping to get some seeds by next 2 weeks that we can also churn the area. The beautiful thing about here, rain is falling, so we expect the field to be grassed in properly, but it will take a little time, you know. I must say I'm very pleased with the work by the company Hanover Grenada Limited. I've been here from the start, from the time they removed the topsoil and moved some of the Tegua mud. And for today, when we look at the drainage, the French drain, and they are working properly, and we are looking forward to another phase of the project where we could concrete some of the drain that you are seeing here to make sure that the field is properly irrigated, and also look at some of the costing for the lights and some of the bleachers.
Construction manager at Hanover Construction Company Grenada Limited is Anand Ramnanan. He told the GIS that his team is also pleased to have executed the job in keeping with the stipulated guidelines presented by the Ministry of Sports.
After doing that, we placed 4 inches of half-inch gravels on the entire playing field, parallel to that well-graded subgrade layer. Right? The half-inch gravels is going to filter the water from the surface into the drains, which will then run off to the perimeter drains. Part of our scope as well was to re-establish the perimeter drains around the playing field. So after putting the half-inch gravels, we replaced the topsoil 4 inches thick, between 3 to 4 inches thick on the playing field. So, and it is graded where we are right now.
Once completed, the various football clubs will no longer have to journey to Bushiju for training. Continuing the news, the fisheries sector was placed under the microscope on Thursday as government looked at ways to strengthen its collaboration with fisherfolk and identify opportunities to sustainably build a resilient local fisheries sector. Minister for Sports, Culture and the Arts, Fisheries and Cooperatives, Honorable Yolan Bean Hosford, and the Farming and Fishing Sector Representative in the Senate, Roderick St. Clair, met with members of the fishing community to evaluate the industry and chart the way forward. The session highlighted new and emerging markets, incentives to promote growth, training for fishermen, and support initiatives from government and other agencies for the industry. Minister Bain Hosford said although the contribution of the fisheries sector to GDP has been small over the years, it is still pertinent. She anticipates that the sector can be developed to include more exports.
These exports could facilitate the emergence of more sophisticated businesses, for example, SIF, that would create greater income for the fisherfolk and the exporters, and in turn the nation via the generation of much-needed foreign exchange. As we are aware, this foreign exchange is needed to purchase our imports. Today's consultation will bring together the above ideas in order to provide the ministry with the information to address the concerns and challenges of you, the fisherfolk, and by extension, foster growth in the industry and the economy.
Senator Roderick St. Clair highlighted the need to promote more structure, which will give fisherfolk the opportunity to get more out of the sector.
The issue of organization is something that I want us to leave here today with. I want us to leave here where we could have some mechanism, not only to communicate on the WhatsApp that we have established and you have performed well in that, but we have a mechanism where we could have that dialogue to look at those issues that would come out from today. And steering committee as such that we can able to interface with the minister and the ministry on the ideas that we leave here with today to assist and get them forward. The mechanism, the framework is not there. And so this is something that we need to find how to make happen. But this, you don't have to wait again on government to do that. If we have good organizations and good groupings, it can happen. And I know there are groups because I've been able to contact the different groups in Waltham and in Duquesne and all those different areas, in Wester Hall and so on. And you exist.
This is the National Report. The news will continue after the break.
Hey, are you gonna wear your mask today? You see everywhere you go, there are rules you got to follow, so don't you say COVID-19 will delay. Take the opportunity to save your community. Don't be that guy, put a mask on your face if you're heading outside. It's your life, my life, more lives will be taken if we don't try. If you feel any symptoms, call the hotline. Stay inside until you feel fine. 6 feet away every day. Keep COVID-19 far from away. Keep Grenada safe. Be COVID-19 smart.
Welcome back. Grenada's Prime Minister, Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell, is encouraging the creation of new business partnerships as part of the region's response to the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. Addressing members of the regional private sector during the virtual Caribbean Business Forum on Wednesday, Dr. Mitchell said these partnerships should help to cultivate a spirit of entrepreneurship in members of the Organization of the Eastern Caribbean States, OECS, noting that trade is vitally important to the survival of regional countries. Dr. Mitchell acknowledged the many challenges brought about by the pandemic and affirmed that in every sector there are unprecedented opportunities. The Grenadian leader said, and I quote, "These challenges carry the seeds of great opportunity, and we are particularly pleased with this chance to exchange views and brainstorm on concrete measures and initiatives that we can undertake together to help us to be more resilient, less dependent on externalities, and shape a new model of collective prosperity," unquote.
The OECS Authority is keen to see an explosion of trade between the OECS and the wider region, starting with Trinidad and Tobago. We would like to encourage new partnerships, especially between our respective private sectors, and for these partnerships to cultivate a spirit of entrepreneurship in the OECS. In every sector, there are unprecedented opportunities.
The Prime Minister also noted that regional integration as an enabler of reciprocity in relations and the aggregation of opportunity in niche CARICOM and hemispheric spaces is essential for our sustainability. Dr. Mitchell lamented the fact that regional trade has not been optimized.
We seem to prefer patronizing other people's business in the global village instead of strengthening and consolidating the wealth of our islands through stronger business ties among each other and interacting with the global village from a position of consolidated strength. Why do we see nothing wrong with importing food and goods from all around the globe, but express objection and erect barriers to buying from our own? Sisters and brothers, something is fundamentally wrong with that approach.
The Caribbean Business Forum was organized by the Global Business Leadership Forum and the Confederation of Regional Business Chambers in collaboration with the OECS Commission. Finally, in the news, Minister for Carriacou and Petite Martinique Affairs, Honorable Kindra Mathurin-Stewart, commends residents of the sister islands for adhering to government's call to avoid carnival-like activities last weekend. Minister Mathurin-Stewart explained that government's decision to cancel the 2021 carnival was done in the best interest of all, considering the increase in COVID-19 cases in neighboring islands. The parliamentary representative says the behavior of residents was not surprising, since they are known to be law-abiding and understanding.
For me personally, I am not surprised, because I know, and I think we all know, that the people of Carriacou and Petite Martinique have always been law-abiding, decent citizens. From the inception of the COVID-19 pandemic in our country, the people of Carriacou and Petite Martinique have always demonstrated that level of consciousness, that level of responsibility towards protecting the communities, the people, and of course our country. And so the lack of carnival-like activities, the lack of large and huge social gatherings over the weekend came as no surprise to me.
She applauded the government for taking the unpopular decision to cancel the activity. She emphasized that the event usually brings revelers from the mainland and other neighboring islands, some of which are now grappling with the challenges of COVID-19.
When government made the decision to cancel Carnival in 2021, government did so having regards to the threat posed by COVID-19 to our people, to our country, to our islands. And I want to add here that was a very good decision to cancel Carnival in Carriacou and Petite Martinique for 2021. Bearing in mind what is happening in neighboring St. Vincent and the Grenadines as it relates to their COVID-19 status. So I think it was a brilliant idea for us to do that. I know it was difficult. I know it was hard for some persons, and it was a difficult decision for government to make as well. But at the end of the day, this is a government that is caring and is interested in the well-being, health, and safety of all our citizens.
That story just ended the national report for today, Thursday, February 18th. Let's recap the top story. Nightly curfew continues, but with shorter hours. On behalf of the entire news and production team, I am Rikisha St. Louis saying thank you for joining us. Until next time.